In this lecture, we are going to import the asset files into our project. All of the assets are 2D sprite files. To make the engine work with these sprites, we need to first enable a plugin called Paper2D. Paper2D is developed by the Epic Games. It's a set of tools and assets that help us create 2D games in the engine. But Paper2D is not enabled by default, so we need to enable it first before we start doing anything. Let's go to Edit, then click on Plugins. This pop-up window is where we manage all of the plugins that we use in the engine. Just search for Paper2D, and you can see it's developed by Epic Games, which is the developer of the Unreal Engine. Then let's enable this plugin, because it's already enabled for my project, so I'm not going to do it again. But since you should not have it enabled before, the engine is going to ask you to restart the project once you enable it. You should follow the message to restart the project. Then we can continue when you are back. Alright, after the project is restarted, you should see Paper2D is enabled in the plugin window. You should see the enable box is checked. This means Paper2D is successfully enabled. Most of the tools we are going to use to create our game is from this plugin. I'm going to try my best to explain everything in detail as we proceed. For now, we can close this plugin window and start importing our asset files. Let's use the Ctrl plus Space key to bring up the content drawer. You can also open the content drawer by clicking the button in the lower left corner. And you can see we have two main folders. The first one is the content folder. This is where we keep all of our project files. Like everything we are going to create in this course is going to go into this content folder. Like the asset files we are going to import, and the blueprints, the game level maps, the materials, basically everything we create for our game is going to be in this content folder. You can see there is another folder called Engine. This folder contains asset files that come with the engine itself. These are things like textures, materials, blueprints, and these files are used by the engine in various scenarios. All of the files for the Paper2D plugin are also in this engine folder. In this course, we are going to focus on the content folder. And most of the time, we are not going to go into the engine folder. So you do not need to think about the engine folder. Just keep in mind that it contains files that support the engine. Then let's right-click on this content folder and select Show in Explorer. It's going to open the content folder in our project folder. Then you should copy the zip file you had just downloaded into this content folder. I already have the zip file here. Let's right-click on it to unzip it. Just select Extract here, and it's going to extract the files into a folder called Asset. And right away, the engine is going to detect the new files in the folder. Let's click the Import button so the engine can start processing the files. Basically, this process helps the engine determine how to represent these files in the engine. After the engine is done importing the files, we can go back to the file browser and delete the zip file from the content folder since we don't need it anymore. Now let's bring up the content drawer and go into the asset folder. And you can go check out the subfolders and the sprite files in it. One thing you're going to notice is that there is a small star in the lower left of each file. The star means there is some change to a file that is unsaved, because the engine changed the settings of this file during the importing process. That's why we see stars in all of the sprite files here. And if you look at the lower right of the window, you can see it says 24 unsaved. You can just click on this button to save all of the files. An alternative way to do it is go to File, then Save All, where you can use the shortcut Ctrl plus Shift plus the S key. Alright, now this button becomes all saved. I guess it takes some getting used to saving files after changing them, so you might want to make it a habit to check out if there are some files that need to be saved in the lower right corner. Let's bring up the content drawer to check out the files again. These files are indeed imported, so the engine now can recognize them, but they're not properly imported as 2D sprite files. You can open a random sprite file in the asset folder. And let's zoom in. You can see the pixels are blurry. This is because by default, the engine does not import these files as 2D sprites. To fix this, we can right-click on the same file. Then we can see there's a section called Sprite Actions. In it, we can find Apply Paper2D Texture Settings. Click on it, and it's going to set this file as a sprite. Now let's zoom in, and we can see it looks good. The pixels now look sharp. What we just did was changing the texture group to 2D pixels. Actually, you can manually change the texture group of an image on the right side here in the window. But of course, going through each file and updating the texture group is going to be a tedious job. Fortunately, we can select all of the sprite files in the folder at once. First, make sure the asset folder is selected. Then let's go to the file filter and select texture. And this is going to show us all of the texture files in the subfolders under the asset folder. We can select them all together. Then right-click, Sprite Actions. Apply Paper2D Texture Settings. Alright, all the files are updated. And we need to save them again. The stars are going to disappear once the files are saved. Let's open some random sprites to check if they look the right way. This file is the animation sheet for the portal, and the pixels look good. Maybe let's check one more sprite before we wrap up. I'm going to open the tile map sprite. This file contains all the tiles for the game level. It looks good, and the texture group is indeed 2D pixels. One last thing, let's disable the texture filter so we can see everything in the asset folder again. You might also want to remove the texture filter from here. Alright, in this lecture, we have enabled the Paper2D plugin and imported all of the asset files.